Good evening, Mr. Whiteford. Can you state your full name for the record and spell your last name?
Devin Whiteford, W-H-I-T-E-F-O-R-D.
Mr. Whiteford, did you hear me go through the penalties for perjury earlier tonight?
Yep.
And do you understand what perjury is?
Yep.
And being advised of the potential penalties for perjury, do you promise to tell the truth in this case today?
I do.
All right, thank you. Go ahead, Mr. Pranis.
Thank you, Your Honor, Commissioners. Mr. Whiteford, you have testified before in these proceedings at the hearing in Gwinner, is that correct?
Yes, I have.
And just for anyone who wasn't in Gwinner, can you briefly describe your current role and experience in the pipeline industry?
Right now, I'm a marketing representative for the Labor's International Union in North America. And I monitor a lot of pipelines all over the state, projects that are going underway, not only ours, but other projects as well.
And your past experience with pipelines?
Past experience in pipelines, 10 years of working in the field installing pipelines, anywhere from being just basic labor to running my own crews, more specifically doing tie-ins.
Great. So I'm going to just, we're going to go quickly through this since it's late. So I'm going to jump right to the important matter. Do you know what pipeline contractor Summit has indicated they intend to use to build the mainline portions of the pipeline in Emmons and Burleigh County?
I believe that would be Pumco.
Great. And do you have any firsthand experience with Pumco pipeline construction projects?
I do. I come across a couple of Pumco right-of-ways here in North Dakota, Williams County.
Okay. And can you describe where and when you observed Pumco pipeline construction projects?
So it was October 2020, and that would have been approximately 30 miles east of Williston, North Dakota, off of Highway 1804.
And could you describe to the best of your knowledge, describe the type of project that was being built?
So it would have been a steel oil pipeline.
Do you have any estimate of the size of the pipeline?
Yeah, it wasn't a very big one. I want to say 10 inches, 10, 12 inches is about what stands out in my mind. That was a few years ago, and didn't really think I'd be up here talking about that today.
So did you make any observations with respect to the excavations that you saw on that project that you witnessed?
I did. So I wasn't able to see a whole lot of this project, but what I did see from the project, from the road, I did identify a couple of tie-in locations where the bell holes were not sloped properly. Individuals working in these unsafe excavations with not quite but pretty close to vertical walls.
And what's the cause of concern with a vertical wall in a bell hole?
Well, it would be more or less a trench collapse and killing individuals.
And what would, in your experience, a responsible contractor do differently on projects that you've worked on in constructing a bell hole?
Well, the correct way to do that would be to properly slope the bell holes out to allow that not to cave in and collapse.
And in your experience, why would contractors not build the bell hole properly and slope it and instead build a fairly vertical wall?
That comes down to about two different reasons why. One would be crews in a hurry and they're just slapping that pipe in the ground and going. The other is an experience of the individual digging these bell holes.
Okay. Now, I also want to ask on that project if you had any observations with respect to the treatment of the pipe that you saw.
Yes, that is one that stands out pretty bright in my mind. I noticed 3 different tie-in sections where the company had went ahead and welded the tie-in sections together, which is not uncommon, but what wasn't right was these tie-in sections that were to be tied into the main line were laying right on the ground.
All right, and why would that be a cause for concern that the pipe would be left laying on the ground?
Well, the general focus for these steel pipeline jobs has typically been the welds. One that I've only heard one other person today even bring up, and that would have been our ag commissioner, would be the actual pipeline coatings and the integrity of the coatings. So when these coatings are compromised, it just allows for faster corrosion of the pipe, and eventually could lead to pipeline failure.
And what's the connection between the corrosion on the pipe and leaving pipe on the ground?
Well, when you set pipe on the ground like that, you've got an abrasive surface, rocks, gravel, any debris, and it will ding up the coating and leave pit holes in there to where moisture and oxygen can penetrate the surface of the pipe and create corrosion.
And when you, in your experience building pipelines, working for responsible contractors, did you see any store pipe in terms of storing? Did you see any of it on the ground on the right of way?
Every job I've been on, every project I've set foot on and worked on, the only thing that touched the ground were the pup sections that weren't long enough to be reused in somewhere else in the pipeline. Okay.
And then, have you seen any other evidence that suggests poor construction practices by Pumpco?
Well, I did see a handful of ranchers dragging a bull out of a slurry pit that was utilized for what I assume to be used for directional drilling mud.
Okay. And what was the context of that? How did you come to see that incident where the bull was dragged out of the slurry pit?
Well, I guess where it all started was meeting with ranchers on this project and visiting with them, and then it was presented to me that this bull was in the slurry pit and then had to use the company's excavator to drag the bull to the side of the slurry pit, dig a ramp so it can get out. To where the bull had to lay there for several hours to recover to hit its feet.
Now, what should have been done in that situation to prevent the bull from ending up in the slurry pit?
So the reason why the bull ended up in the slurry pit is this slurry pit was right in the middle of a pasture, and the fence that the contractor had put up around the slurry pit consisted of some T-posts loosely slapped into the ground and one strand of wire going around the pit on these T-posts, and was not tight by any means. Typically, if you're going to do something like that with an open excavation in a pasture that's got cattle in it, you're going to put a little better fence in there using multi-strands and probably something a little more rigid in your corner post, like wooden post. I don't necessarily think for a temporary excavation like that full-fledged H-braces would have been needed, but something with a little more beef to it to hold these cattle out.
And so based on your limited experience, your direct experience with Pumpco, would you have concerns about Pumpco being selected to build the largest and most sensitive portion of this pipeline?
In my opinion, Pumpco is a JV contractor that, can they put a pipe in the ground? Yes, we've seen this happen. We've seen this happen in Texas. We've seen this happen here. We've seen this happen in a lot of places. Is it a contractor that I would recommend? I wouldn't want them on any of my assets, much less one that's got this much of a spotlight on it. I don't believe that they're the contractor that we need working on this project.
All right. Thank you very much. No further questions.
Mr. Bender, any questions?
Just a couple. Mr. Whiteford, I understand from your testimony that you want to make sure that if a pipeline is installed, it's installed properly. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. That is 100%. So pipeline is what's given my family in income for lots of years.
I apologize, but we've been here a long time, so
I know we have, but
just
this is important. So we need to protect this industry across the board. We keep having these slapshot contractors come through and just throwing pipe in the ground. That's going to make this process even longer in the future. This right here. It's going to be harder and harder to get approvals and permits to get these pipelines in the ground. So yes, I take this really serious.
I understand.
I want to see the future of this pipeline stick around.
So, Mr. Whiteford, I think you've indicated both by answering my question and the statement that you made that making sure the pipe is installed properly is very important to you. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And I think one of the examples you gave is the pipe. You're concerned about some of the coating being scraped off the pipe, and that's a concern for you. Is that correct?
That's a big concern.
Pardon me?
That's a big concern.
When you saw this happen on this 30-mile pipe, I think you said it was east of Williston, did you report it to anyone?
Who am I going to report it to?
Did you report it to anyone?
No, I did not.
Okay, no further questions.
Mr. Pelham, any questions?
As far as the your knowledge, sir, of where Pumpco is getting its workers in North Dakota, if you know.
I cannot say that. I can't tell you where they come from. I can tell you that there's a lot of out-of-state license plates floating around the job sites.
Do you know if Pumpco hires union or non-union workers?
Non-union.
I don't have any other questions. Thank you.
Mr. Bakke, any questions?
No questions.
Mr. Leibel, any questions?
No questions.
Commissioner Chrisman?
None, but thanks for hanging around, Evan.
Commissioner Haugen-Hoffert?
No questions. Thank you so much.
Mr. Dawson?
No questions.
And any redirect?
Just briefly, Mr. Whiteford, have in the past, when you've noted problems on pipeline projects, have you brought those to the attention of authorities or of pipeline owners or contractors?
I have, if I know who to contact. This was a particular project owner that I have no experience with, and so therefore I have no contact info within that company.
Yeah, and in your experience, when you've brought these to the attention of companies or authorities with whom you don't have a relationship, has it resulted in any changes to the project?
It has. If I can throw an example out there, there was a situation where I was driving down a road, and next thing you know, a big drag section, which would be the pipe that's going in for a directional drill, is hanging over the road, and the flaggers are directing traffic under this pipe as they're hanging this over the road. From there, I was able to contact the company representative that I knew and notified him of the issue. I showed him pictures and a short video, and within minutes that whole evolution was shut down until they could reconvene and figure out how they're going to do this a safer way.
But that was a case where you had an existing relationship with the owner of the pipeline, is that correct?
Yes, it was.
Right. But generally speaking, pipeline contractors and owners are not taking advice from you on how they should build their projects.
Typically, no. I've told them about other things in the past, and they've just kind of shrugged that off.
Thank you.
All right. Mr. Bender, did you have any other questions? I know you were the only one that asked the first time.
Have you ever witnessed a situation where a union pipeline company has made some errors?
Well, yeah, I mean...
No further questions.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Whiteford.